How much of an effect is class size on the learning of students? Should states be setting laws in order to limit the maximum size of a class? What is the ideal learning environment for young adults? These are the questions that are being discussed in America's school systems today. It is not only a nationwide debate, but also a debate right here in Skodak. As funds and teacher availability decrease, class sizes increase, creating a potentially unideal learning environment for students. In the April 16th, 2019 meeting of the Skodak Central School District Board of Education, a hot topic of debate was the increase in the size of third grade classes. The budget is only allowing for 3 teachers next year instead of the usual 4, which is causing much distress amongst parents. The meeting minutes cited 7 different parents with concerns about the class size. Some of these parents were even teachers who had had firsthand experience with fluctuating class sizes and claimed that the cognitive ability of students is inverse to class size. This is a problem that can be seen in our community. It's affecting our students, our parents, and our teachers. It is a direct result of a lack of tax money, which can be accredited to the fact that the town has not expanded in recent years. The biggest question in all of this is how much does class size really affect students? It's often debated whether or not the size of a student's learning environment has an effect on their cognitive ability, recall ability, and attentiveness. Lorraine Johnson released an article on this very topic in 2011. She talked about how class size is one of the most important aspects of the learning community and even claims that small class size is more essential than a top tier teacher. It is also not necessarily the number of students in the room, but the student to teacher ratio in said room. If a classroom has 100 students and 10 teachers, that 10-to-1 ratio is likely to be a better breeding ground for cognitive ability than a classroom with, say, 30 or 40 students and 1 teacher. Especially at younger grades, class size is extremely important to the learning environment. With this, anytime that a student will be placed in a high level of stress or need much advising, such as a elementary school class or a college level high school course, class size is extremely important. A lecture in college can have hundreds of students because it's just listening to a speaker and taking notes, but a lab cannot because students need direct attention and need one-on-one help to be able to solve their problems. Colleges purposefully advertise student to faculty ratio in every single brochure that you see from them because it matters to students, it matters to parents, and it matters to how each person learns. If you go into our school, such as ours, about 95% of students and teachers will agree that classes, especially those in the elementary school, should have less than 25 students per teacher in a classroom. Take this into a high school setting, and it's very evident in a class like AP Calculus. Maple Hill leads the nation in AP scores, with only 1 student receiving a 1 and 1 student receiving a 2 in Miss Balog's tenure as an AP Calc teacher here. This is due to a number of things, but knowing from personal experience, the lack of students in the classroom is extremely beneficial. As the year went on, more students dropped the class. We got more individual time with our teacher. We had more one on one help, and we learned at a pace that is better suited for everyone left in the class. This is why we consistently oust the nation with our scores. A school like Columbia or Shen might have 20 to 30 people in an AP Calc class with multiple different sections taught by multiple different teachers. This results in less personal time with the students and less few questions answered. Say we have half the number of students in each class and half the number of classes, we're able to ask like 4 times the amount of questions and ultimately be 4 times more prepared than our counterparts. Small class size not only gives students more attention, but it requires a student to give the teacher more attention because they'll be unable to hide behind their computers and behind their classmates. I have been in classes with 30 plus students, and I will admit that I personally have become very sidetracked with zero repercussion. Whereas if I were to get sidetracked in a class of, say, 12 students, I'd be quickly snapped back into place. Decreased student to teacher ratios don't only foster a greater learning environment and require more questions to be asked, but they force students to be attentive throughout their entire time in the classroom, increasing learning and increasing their attention span. The biggest problem with class size reduction is that budgets simply do not provide for it. In a town like Castleton, our tax bracket is way too small to provide for small classes and the large range of class offerings that we have. In a school like Columbia or Shen, there are far too many students to be able to have class sizes of 15 students, the ideal size presented by many different professionals on this topic. During his time as president, Bill Clinton pledged $15 billion in order to reduce the size of classes, but this money has seemingly disappeared as it is being spent elsewhere. It seems like reducing class size is simple, but there are many published works who claim that class size reduction is the single most expensive reform in school districts across America. Despite, despite the fact that many parents support small class sizes, they're the ones who are unwilling to pay for it. If we took those 7 concerned parents who spoke out at the Board of Education meeting in April and told them that they would just have to pay a couple hundred extra dollars on their taxes next year in return for those reduced class sizes, they'd likely resent the idea because it's easier to complain about something than to pay more and make a change about it. Due to this, the problem can only be solved if there's an interruption from the government. Whether this is local, state, or federal, something needs to change. Many states have even promised grants if a certain student to teacher ratio is met, but such as in Oklahoma, these numbers have changed from 16 to 1 requirements to requirements of 29 to 1, which essentially ruins the entire idea. It gives way more schools the money that don't deserve it, and then this is likely spent on things that aren't reducing class sizes. If the requirement was kept low, more money could be given to each school that meets the bar, and then that surplus of money that schools have can be used to fund for the extra teachers required to keep our class sizes lower. Inherently, class size is one of the most necessary reforms in not only Skodak schools, but schools across America. And just as anything else that is necessary, it is not going to be cheap. The way for students to be able to be given the class sizes that they deserve is for the government to focus a little bit more of their budget to schools who strive for lower student to teacher ratios. Only 3% of the $3.8 trillion budget, about $102.3 billion, goes to education each year, and only a small percentage of this is dedicated to lowering class sizes. It will not be easy, and it will certainly not be cheap, but it is extremely necessary for the benefit of our students and ultimately our society that we reduce the size of classes in America. The only way that this can happen is by taking a stand, pushing for new laws, and being willing to pay for the class size reductions that we need.